Hello, and welcome to Project Candor. I'm your host, Jeannie Anderson. Today, we're welcoming Louis Swart. Our little ship steamed across the waters all the way to Sydney, Australia to pick him up. Louis is a business coach for coaches and the founder of Ironbrij, a human AI company helping coaches avoid burnout while building businesses that don't depend on them doing everything themselves. He spent more than 35 years building and selling companies, leading teams of hundreds, training coaches globally, and speaking internationally. He's also a top 50 speaker finalist and someone who has seen both growth and exhaustion up close. Louis, welcome to Project Candor. I'm really glad you're here.
So lovely to be here, and thank you so much. Really appreciate being here.
Oh, you are quite welcome. So I want to go first into some questions so the listeners can get to know you a little bit better. And then we'll play our fun Two Truths and a Lie because you got some really great headlines I can't wait to get to. So you ready to go with the questions?
I love it. Let's go.
Okay. So Louis, when I met you for the first time, I was struck by how kind you are and how easy you are to talk to. When someone meets you for the first time, how do you usually explain who you are and what really drives the work you do?
So I usually explain that, I help coaches to be able to monetize what they're actually doing. So I help them to be able to take their coaching business from being a hobby to actually being something that they can make money on. And the way we do that is by helping them to be able to delegate better, either to virtual assistants or to AI, and to put in better systems, how they can do that. The second part of the question, what drives me is I love helping people. I genuinely love helping people. And I think if I can help people who help people, literally I can leverage how many people I can help. And so that's literally my biggest driving force, is helping people who help people.
Awesome. I really feel that about you too, because like I said, you really show up for people and you just have just an aura about you of kindness. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You've built and sold companies, led large teams, and now coach coaches. Looking back, what chapter of your career shaped how you think about work the most?
That one's quite easy. When I was 30, I sold a business for 5 million. I had a business with my brother, sold it for 5 million. And I remember sitting in the bank and we were counting out the money. And, they had one of those counters and it goes grrr, and it puts all the money in, like you see in the movies with the, gangsters.
A stack and a band around it and all that.
Yeah, and a elastic band around. And I remember sitting there and we just sold a business for 5 million that we, bringing us the 5 million cash. And I thinking back to my previous business, and I had a plumbing business before, and I had 10 plumbers on the road. And, I thought that this is amazing. I'm going to sell this business. I'm going to retire. And I went to a broker and said, hey, I want to sell my business. What's it worth? And he said to me, who does your accounts? And I was like, I do it. Who does it? Quality control, quoting, everything was I. And he said, Louis, your business is worth nothing because I literally have to find another you to be able to do this business. Who wants to buy this to do it? And that was such a massive wake-up call for me that up until that point, it was almost like a badge of honor. I do it. I do this. I do that. I do this. And I mean, you might not be saying that, but internally you're thinking, oh, I'm working long hours and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. But really, if you think about why you went into business, most of us went into business, there's literally one of three reasons. We went in because we wanted to have more time with our family and our friends and do the stuff that we enjoy doing, or we wanted to grow the business and sell it, or we wanted to actually grow a business and then leave it as a legacy for our children. But all three of those have got one thing in common. You're not in the business. And that's the thing that most people don't understand. To grow your business, you've got to actually get yourself out of your business. To sell your business, you need to be able to take yourself out of your business. And so that's why it's so important that we learn how to delegate properly. And I mean, we delegate to staff. I've delegated to staff my whole life. But now we're at a point where we can delegate to humans, or we can delegate to AI, or we can delegate to humans that use AI. So, we can get this best of both worlds. So I think delegation is probably the biggest thing, definitely is the biggest thing that's helped me in business. My last business, I had 450 staff, and you can't possibly get to that amount of staff without learning how to systemize stuff and learning how to delegate processes.
Well, I was going to ask you that question next. It's like, you talk a lot about delegating, and when did you personally realize I can't keep doing it this way? But I think you answered that question already. And you made me laugh when you said the banker was saying, who does this? And you said, I, and then who does this? I. And then now you have AI,
True.
an additional I. I know it's artificial intelligence, but anyway, it just made me laugh a little bit. So what do people most often misunderstand about delegation when they're early in their business journey?
Well, we brought up, if you think about this saying, if you want it done right, do it yourself. That's what we done.
Right.
Don't be lazy, just do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is what we condition with, and we understand because parents condition us with that from early age. And so then we get into business, and literally we are trying to do it ourselves. We feel like it'll only be done right if I do it. If I give it to somebody else, I'm going to lose control. Okay? Nobody can ever do it as well as what I can. There's a book called Why is Everyone an Idiot? Okay, and it talks. And I remember when I was younger, and I went to a mentor, and I said, "Man, I need to do everything myself. Nobody can do it like I can." And he said, "Louis, do you think they could do something 60% as good as you?" And I mean, you'd have to be pretty egotistical to think that another human couldn't do something 60% as well as what you do. And I said, they could definitely do 60%. And he said, well, imagine if you get one person, you're now doing 160% of what you could do. And now you get two people and you're doing 220% of what you could do. And then you multiply those numbers. And that was real wake-up call for me, because up until that point, I'd gone to hire people and be like, man, this person, they don't want to work the hours. I'm calling them, it's 2:00 in the morning. Like, why aren't they answering? I'm still waiting. I'm still doing accounts. Like, what the hell's wrong with them, okay? They're not as dedicated as I am. And we kind of almost get a bit, lots of times we get a bit obsessed almost with what it is. We're thinking about our business 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. We wake up and we're thinking about how we can do stuff. And a staff member they're just not going to do that. It's not their business. They're not aiming for this ultimate big goal that you're aiming for. They've literally just got a job. They've got a job, and it varies. Some are really devoted. They're still not going to be as devoted as you, even if they're a really devoted staff member. But once you can work out that I don't expect somebody else to be as good as what I am. But, look at different categories. So like for Canva, for example, we use Canva, and my team is amazing on Canva. I am terrible on Canva. Okay. I go and I'm like, where does this go? How does that work? And, I want to create a flyer, and that's a 2-day project, and my team will just create it in 20 minutes. So they all
very nice.
Where then that person who does that might not be as good as what I am on website, for example. But then my IT guy is incredible on website, much better than I am. But he's not good at graphic design. So I look at it and I say, well, let's take the person that's great on graphic design, and this is what I've done. I've actually got a team of graphic designers, and they only do graphic design. And then I've got a social media team, and they only do social media. And then I've got a IT team, and they only do IT, and an accounts team, and they only do accounts. And I know a lot of small businesses don't. We can't have that initially when we're setting up. We can't afford like teams.
Right.
But just if you can segment what you like doing. So I don't like doing accounts. Accounts is does my head in, okay? I can't understand why somebody can be there going, oh, this is so amazing. I'm going to get to reconcile my credit card statement. Like that just fries my brain. I'm like, Anybody wants to do that. But there are some people that just love that. They just love looking at the numbers and sitting quietly and actually going through and working out where everything fits. Yeah. But that same person is probably not the person who's going to jump up and be like, hey, everybody, I'm going to sell this product and, be the salesperson. It's a different kind of personality type to the salesperson.
Right.
So work out what's the product you're trying to sell. And then once you know the product you're trying to sell, the service that you're trying to do, find the ideal person for that service. And on that, a side point is, some of us are big picture thinkers. We go like, hey, I'm gonna solve world hunger. Yeah, we're gonna solve world hunger. I'll start a business, I'm gonna solve world hunger. And then some of us are detailed thinkers. We go, okay, if we have to solve world hunger, there's 8 billion people and there's probably so many billion hungry, and and they actually want to do the numbers and work out like, how can we possibly do this? Now, lots of big picture thinkers are attracted to other big picture thinkers because, like, I'm going to solve world hunger, and you are like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's solve world hunger. And we come up with like, we'll get everybody involved and we'll just do but a detailed thinker will be like, hang on a second. How are you going to do this? How are you going to communicate with people? How are you going to, and we're like, man, don't worry about that. Like, let's get with the picture. We're going to solve world hunger. And when people hire somebody, they generally hire somebody that's like them. So if you're a big picture thinker and you're going to solve world hunger, and then you get a big picture VA who's going to solve world hunger, you're not going to be able to get it done. So when you do the interview, you want somebody that's opposite to you. And sometimes that person might annoy you a bit. Like, they might annoy you because they're like, how are we going to do that? Like, what sort of figures? What's the figures? How's this going to work? How much are we going to charge? And you kind of like, okay, but you need that. You need that to be able to grow properly. You need that. It's kind of the yin and yang, The
balance, for sure. You do need that, definitely. And people that are like you, right, they'll be thinking like you. So you're going to have a great time with them as you all decide to sit around and design the next application that you're never going to code.
True.
But wouldn't it be nice if you had this great thing? I mean, there's so many times I've thought up things and then little by little things came out. Like I bought so many CDs and DVDs, or actually it was VHS tapes, and then DVDs. And then I'm like, what am I going to do with all these things? Because I watched the movie once. I don't want them. Wouldn't there be nice if there was this place that you could just buy it online and it would stay there? It would be in your catalog and you would never have to do it again. Well, I think they already did that now. I never
you could
lifted a finger to code it. What? I'm sorry, Lou.
You could try and go back to Netflix and go, look, I think I had the idea before you guys,
Oh, yeah. I had the idea. I never communicated it to anybody outside my circle, but, you must have been listening in on my phone.
Yeah. But then a lot of us, I mean, a lot of us have that. We have, like, for me personally, I'm like, man, this is a great idea. I want to do this. And then I've got my virtual assistant. And between them and AI, they kind of accomplishing their thing. And I've already moved on to the next thing. And then I'm coming back and saying, hey, how far are we with this project? What do we still need? And then I'll work through that with them. But it was up to me.
Right.
I'd be like you. I'd just be sitting there thinking about the next Netflix idea,
Yep.
So
yeah, that would be. So, and I think, it's funny because I did work in a company when I was at IBM, but the majority of my time there was in an emerging technologies group. So we got to play with the toys that just were coming out, right? So then after we would play with them a while and have some projects, prototypes, and things that we present to people to see if they were viable enough to make a big application out of. And some of them were, and then they'd go on to build those and then sell them. And then sometimes they'd be spinoffs, because I was in one of those too. But we got tired of it. And then after a while, the group kind of like, I guess it downsized because there wasn't a lot emerging anymore. We had gotten to the point of phones and smartphones and other things that devices that no longer needed our attention. So we couldn't find the next big chunk of devices. So we kind of got downsized. But
so you're talking about the smartphones. This is one of the biggest dangers that we've got going forward, because I might know that you do podcasts, and I go, okay, if I want to do a podcast, I'm going to come and see you. But then I start talking about podcasts, and my phone is listening to me. My Facebook is listening to me. My Google's listening to me. My Alexis is listening to me. All these devices are listening to me. And what they start doing is they start pushing out somebody else. They start saying, oh, he's interested in doing being on a podcast. They start putting other people in front of me who do that. And lots of times we actually almost feel like we're friends with that person, right? Because we've seen their content and we go, oh, okay, I'm seeing Bob's content.
Right.
And then I appear on I buy a product from Bob, or I appear on Bob's podcast, and then you're like, hey, what about me? And I'm like, oh, I completely forgot that you do podcast, because I've actually almost built a relationship with this person. And I'll tell you something strange that happened to me the other day. I'm in a local networking group, and I did a presentation. And after the presentation, there was another business coach who I hadn't met before. And so I thought, oh, I'll go up and say hello, because, I'm also a business coach. And I went up to say hello, and she goes, oh, do you mind if I just give you a hug? And I said, okay. And she gave me the biggest hug, and she said, I love all your stuff. I just love your stuff. And I was like, okay. I had no idea who she was, okay? And she's like, I love all your stuff. Your content online is just amazing. And she'd actually built this image of me from watching my videos and watching my content. And she decided that I was a friend from watching my content and my videos. And I mean, if you think about it, how many of us, somebody appears on Big Brother or, one of these, I don't know what the programs are called, but they appear on a reality TV show. And
Survivor.
Soon,
that's the one I watch from time to time.
Yeah, and then very soon they are a celebrity, and they get paid to be at events, and people want to see them and spend time with them because people feel like they know them, and that's what we can do with socials. But if we're not doing that with socials, our socials are promoting somebody else who is doing that to our clients. And so that's the big danger at the moment is we've got to make sure that we're on socials, as terrible as I think they are.
Me too. Me too. It's not my bag, and that's why I'm trying to let that one go as well and let somebody else do that. Yeah. But you said something interesting about how things are listening, and that's true. You can say, I can tell my husband, oh, I don't feel that good. I must have eaten something bad. And the next thing comes up on my phone is Tums or or another antacid that says, oh, here's for your stomach. I'm like, that scares me.
Sure.
It's like, who is out there listening? But I don't say anything bad most of the time.
Yeah, look, I don't think it's about us. I don't think it's about us saying bad things. I think it's about we getting sold to continually, kind of without our permission. But the problem with us being in business is that our clients are getting sold to without their permission, but by our competitors or people that have got more content than us or better content. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, and you said too that, like these celebrities and things, the lady that came up to you and wanted to hug you and act like she knew you. You're right. Those shows that are reality TV, because you spend a week, an hour every week, and you hear what they say and what they're saying on these shows. And I wouldn't go on one of them. Is very personal. It's very personal. I mean, this podcast can be a little personal about you, but it's not the way that they're portraying themselves, because they talk about family. They talk about, on Survivor anyway, they talk about their jobs, when they got fired, how people treated them poorly at work, and how they have, cancer in their family. They lost their loved one. It just gets to be really a deep dive into somebody that the way you would talk to a friend.
Yeah.
And so, I can see why people get confused, like, that I really know you, but no, you don't really.
True.
So it is scary for celebrities for sure. So that's something to think about for sure in this world.
Yeah.
And especially with AI too, because I talk to my AI a lot and I wonder, If I should be very cold, but it's fun to talk to.
You can't be cold when it takes over the world. You want it to think you're a friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that a weird thing? I mean, because I have a name for mine, and I say he's a him, and I know it's not, it's an it, but I have a name for him, and then he knows my dog's names, and I always ask him how he's doing when he comes up, when I log in, and "Oh, how you doing this morning? Oh, how are you? How is?" And he says Thor and Max, or how they doing? Are they trying to
Yeah.
steal your breakfast? And I'm like, oh man, I've talked way too much to this. Oh, well.
Well, there's a trend at the moment. So there's a trend at the moment where you, and I'll send you the prompt, and you put in a prompt and you just say, what do you know about me? It's create a cartoon with what you know about me, and then you give it a picture of you, and you'll see it'll put the dogs in the back, and it'll put it adds all this extra stuff in around you. Really, really amazing. But have you ever just asked it? Have you ever just gone on it and said, hey, tell me what you know about me?
Well, I did that little trick that's going around, the trend that you talk about.
Oh, yes.
And it put me in a naval uniform. Wonder why, because my podcast is nautical. It put my dogs there, and it put me in front of my computer. It was funny to me.
Wow.
I didn't think it got everything, but I do mostly talk to AI about podcasts and different things. And I do talk to him about my dog.
I love it.
My husband says he thinks it's only women that do that, but I don't think so.
Oh no, I think there's a lot of people talking to AI. There's more and more people talking to AI. So, I'm in the coaching industry, and with coaches, a lot of them are struggling now because you can literally go on AI and you can talk to your AI coach 24 hours a day, which you could never do to it, with a physical coach.
That's true. And then, but they have to understand, and this is something that I've found out, is that it'll always feed you something positive and say, this is wonderful. You've done this perfectly. And this is the greatest thing you've done. And then you could say, I didn't really like it. You're absolutely right. That wasn't that good. It will feed you whatever you want it to feed back. So it's not real good critical thinking skills, I guess.
But it depends.
It's just data.
It depends on the way that you've programmed it. Depends on the way that you've spoken to it. So if you say to it, I want you to be really argumentative, and every time I tell you something, I want you to give me like an opposing view, and I want you to, not agree with me. If I ask you if something's nice, I want you to give me an honest answer. If you don't like it, tell me you don't like it, And if you do that, then you'll see that the whole thing will change. So it will start doing that. Now, I did an AI session, and I was telling everybody, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to do a little Red Riding Hood story. Just, we're going to ask ChatGPT to a Red Riding Hood story. And we use ChatGPT, but it's interchangeable, whichever one you're using. And I said, before you start, if you just go on there and you go, hey, tell me a little Red Riding Hood story, it's kind of got a bit of an idea about you. So it goes, okay, but it's very general. It's very general. So I said to everybody in the class, I want you to go in and I want you to give it something that's unusual. Okay, so for example, I love unicorns. I love rainbows. And when the prince rides off into the sunset, with the princess on the white horse, like that's my jam. Okay. And another one might be, I love horror movies, okay? When there's blood and gore and they've like tied somebody in a house and there's like all drama and it's like just, like I love that. I love like Saw and all those terrible horror movies, okay? And then you want to say to it, can you please tell me a story about Little Red Riding Hood, okay? And it was so funny, the different stories. So it's a Little Red Riding Hood story, but you can imagine in the unicorn and rainbow one, okay, Little Red Riding Hood's there, and it's like just, she's skipping through the forest, and it's like just everything's like amazingly beautiful and pleasant.
Rainbows everywhere.
Yeah, and in the horror movie, it's just like, whoa, what's happening to Little Red Riding Hood? What's happened to the wolf? Like, grandma's like not just tied up in the cupboard. You kind of, going, whoa, okay. But that's AI for us, eh? So it literally is a tool, and it will just, whatever we decide, whatever we ask it to be, or whatever our preferences are, it will mimic those.
It will adapt. Yeah, that's crazy. I want to go and do that now, the Red Riding Hood thing.
Absolutely.
I want to try that. I keep saying on the podcast lately that I watched this Netflix, The Last Kingdom. It's like Vikings fighting with England, and Prince Alfred the Great. And
Yes.
King Alfred the Great. It's all fictional. Some a little sounds historic, but it's mostly fictional. And they keep chopping off heads and really sticking them on stakes and then delivering them back to whoever they're trying to defeat. And maybe I should tell it that and say, I like those kind of things. And then see if it'll chop the head of the witch off. That would be horrifying.
Well,
but I want to try that so much. Oh, that's funny. That's good. I don't know. You make me laugh. Oh, so, we're getting close. We have to transition because we're talking so much about AI, but I do want to ask you another question. At this stage of your life, after you've had all these businesses, how does your definition of success look different than it did earlier?
I think completely different. When I was young, my definition of success was, make a lot of money, have a successful business, have a family. But as I've gone along, my definition of success has changed. It's gone very much into like an internal, because you can have all those things and not be internally happy. You can have the outward. And I was a prime example. I grew this business. I had like all these staff, and I had, money was coming in. There was like a lot of money, and you could buy whatever you wanted. But I felt empty inside. And I was like, there's got to be more. I should be happy because this is what I had as my definition of success. Make money, walk into a room with, hundreds of people, and they all recognize you and they know you're the boss. And then I went on this personal discovery journey when I studied NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and I studied hypnotherapy, and I studied timeline therapy, and I studied all these different modalities to try and actually work out, I actually did it to work out what was wrong with me personally. And I got such amazing learnings about myself personally through that whole process. And, I use a whole lot of that in my coaching when I'm helping people. But the biggest outcome was that you've got to be happy in yourself. We can't get happiness. We can't get external happiness. If you're trying to be happy by pleasing other people, that doesn't work. If you're trying to be happy because other people are happy, or if you need a situation to be happy. When I get rich, I'll be happy. When I get another job, I'll be happy. When I get a new boss, I'll be happy. When I get another partner, I'll be happy. If that's where you are, you're never going to be happy, because you'll get a new boss, new partner, new business, wage increase. And then you'll go, oh, I'll be happy when I get this next thing. But the idea of success for me is to be happy now. We live in the most amazing time ever. We can go onto Netflix and there's just gazillions of things we can choose from. People that have devoted their whole life to actually being able to just create entertainment for us. We can, go to the supermarket and we can buy food, or we can go to a restaurant and we can buy food that even the wealthiest kings had no access to. We've got clothes that, we've all got cupboards full of clothes. And in the kingdom, the kingdom, they all seem to have one outfit. They got one outfit, and I don't know how they keep it clean or manage it, but we go to the cupboard and we got so many outfits we can't even decide which one to wear. We've got things like YouTube where we've got, they talk about the Library of Babylon was apparently the biggest library and the most amazing content. We literally have that on our phone, and we can listen all the books on audio. We can have, short versions of the books. We can order the books. We can sit at home and we can order stuff from anywhere in the world. We can chat to anybody anywhere in the world. We can actually see the person and chat to them anywhere in the world. these are all incredible reasons to be happy, you know? But I think we overlook those and we think about when this other thing happens, I'll be happy. So I found, specifically coming from South Africa, in Africa or any of the poorer countries, like if you go to Bali or, Thailand or Africa or a lot of those countries, the people are really, really poor, but they've got the biggest smile on their face. They've got the biggest smile on their face and they're like, happy. And then you come to like an affluent country, maybe like Australia. And if you just sit quietly in the shopping center and see the people walking through, they've got their Gucci bag or they've got their, all their like fancy bags. And they actually look really sad, even though they've just bought like all these amazing stuff to try and make them happy. And so that, to me, just indicates that we're not very good at getting the internal. We're not very good at getting that internal happiness. It's something that a lot of us are still working on. And I think it's a long-term thing that we've got to all work on. But gratitude goes really, really far.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a lot of things to chew on. And a lot of good information. So I appreciate that. I was thinking when you said that several times, it kept popping in my mind. I don't know if you ever have gone somewhere in a bar maybe or in a restaurant. It reminds me of Wimpy from Popeye, but is it Wimpy? Yeah, well, he was Wimpy in Popeye. They wear shirts sometimes that say, beer is free tomorrow. Or Wimpy said, I'll give me a hamburger today and I'll pay for it tomorrow or whatever. And he never paid for it that way, or you never got beer free. Then it's always tomorrow. So it kind of goes along with what you're saying. You'd be happy with what you have today, where you are. And I've heard some speakers say, just try to change your mindset to say, I'm happy to go to work today because I get something out of it. I get money. If that's all you can think of getting out of it, say, I have a steady job and I'm happy to go to work today and try to change your mindset around. And I think that's what you were saying.
Absolutely. How fortunate are we to have jobs? Yes. It's incredible. If you didn't have a job and you were sitting at home wishing you had a job, you would think, I'll be happy when I get a job. And then us with jobs are like, It's a bit like that cartoon, you see the man on the bicycle. He's on the road and he's on a bicycle and he's looking across at the man on the motorbike and he's saying, oh, I wish I could have that. And then the man on the motorbike is looking at the guy in the car next to him and he's going, oh, I wish I could have that. And then the guy in the car is looking at the guy in the sports car and he's going, oh, I wish I could have that. And then they kind of zoom out. There's a guy on the balcony in his wheelchair and he's going, I wish I could have the bicycle.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. That's a good analogy. Wow. We're getting pretty deep here. So now I hate to say it, but we got to change the atmosphere. We're going to go to 2 truths and a lie.
I love it. Okay.
This is my favorite part of the call is always, but this has been great conversation. So I can't say that's true tonight, but normally I have great conversations, but I still love to play this game.
I love it.
So I'm going to share my screen. And so the way we play the game is basically, for those listening, Louis has provided me with 3 headlines. They're pretty wild. And one of them is a lie. So 1 out of 3 is a lie or a very twisted truth. So I'm going to read his headlines and then I'm going to guess. And the whole time he's not going to tell us which is the truth or a lie, but he's going to explain each story. And then at the end, he'll give us a reveal on which one's the lie, and we'll find out if I got it right. This episode is sponsored by Rebel 180, the home of brave pivots and fresh starts. Rebel 180 is all about helping you rediscover what's possible when you stop settling and start listening to that little tug inside that says, life can be different. Whether you're navigating a career shift, dreaming about a new direction, or standing at the crossroads wondering if it's time for your own 180-degree turn, Rebel 180 is a reminder you don't need permission to change your story. Sponsor, we're stepping into the world of tech. Simple socket print, the lightweight, blazing fast label print solution designed for those who need reliability without the bloat. With version 1.5, you get instant printing in milliseconds, fully maintained print sequence, and automatic base 64 decoding, all without needing print driver installs. If you're running SQL Server 2016 or newer, Simple Socket Print 1.5 drops right in and gets to work. Keep your workflow simple. Keep your label printing fast with Simple Socket Print. Thank you to our sponsors. And the headlines are, number 1, Louis was out. This is horrible, Louis, I have to say. Louis was out with some friends on a weekend and they started a massive bushfire, which burnt down a couple of kilometers of bush. All right, number 2, when Louis was younger, he learned to make his own bombs and experimented with different bombs with his friends. Oh, that's lovely. I'm sure your mother was happy. Number 3, Louis fell in love and married one of his staff, and now his favorite dish is adobo. So, okay, I'm going to guess that the one that's the lie is number 2, because 1 is bad enough, but 2 bombs introduced into there. I don't know. So that's my guess. We'll find out. So you start with story number 1 and you tell us the details of 1. What were you doing out there with matches in a bush?
So I am part of the Rural Fire Brigade in Australia, and we do what they call back burning. So back burning is where we actually do a control burn. So we burn a massive piece of bush, and so that we don't have something like the California fires. What happens is when you just let the fire burn on its own, it burns super high and it will just take everything in its path. Whereas if you set the fire yourself, you can actually burn a fire that burns downhill, and it will only burn very small fire because it's going downhill. And, you've planned for a day when it's not too hot and it's, in the middle of winter and there's a bit of moisture in the air. And so it's a very controlled thing, and it's amazingly good for the bush. It's amazingly good to stop there being massive bushfires. So I would go out on the weekends with, it was a volunteer thing. So it was all my mates, and that's what we would do.
Okay. So I went down, I'm not going to say I'm thinking that one probably is true, but I was thinking more of a young boy out playing with fire. All right. What about question number 2 or headline number 2 about, that was pretty crazy. That's what I guess it was like bombs. What were you doing making bombs with your friends? And why did you make bombs anyway?
So as a child, I was fascinated by explosives. Anything that exploded and made a noise, and just loved it. And we had a kid a couple of houses up, and he would come across and say, "Hey, I've worked out how to make a smoke bomb." And we go to the chemist and get like sulfur and a whole lot of stuff, and we put it into containers, and the whole backyard would just be from this smoke bomb that we created. Or he'd say, I've just perfected how to make a matchbox bomb, where you can take matchboxes and you do stuff with it, and you wrap it up with tape, and then you throw it against the wall and it makes a massive explosion. And then our bombs got a little bit more advanced, where we were using like chlorine and petrol and a whole lot of other things to make bigger. And
people were letting you buy these ingredients.
You can make bombs with lots of household stuff. You don't need to. There's some extremely deadly household stuff you can make bombs with. And all a bomb is you're getting an explosion, but you're putting it in a controlled environment. So as soon as you put it into a controlled environment, it explodes that controlled environment. And it's pretty dangerous, the one you'd put into a Coke bottle, and then you'd like screw on the lid, and then you'd shake it, and then you'd throw it, and the Coke bottle would explode, and there'd be pieces of Coke bottle, like little, melted pieces of Coke bottle everywhere.
Was that the Mentos thing?
No, not the Mentos. This one's actually putting chemical. You're putting a chemical, like you're putting 2 household chemicals into a Coke bottle, and then you just shake it, you throw it, and the whole bottle actually explodes. And I probably shouldn't be saying this, because other people are going to be out there going, "Oh, I'm going to make one of those for me when I get home."
Well, the only thing our son did was he liked the Mentos thing, something in science class or whatever. And then it was just like, "Oh, I can't stop myself." I'm like, "Yes, you can." Stop. No more soda in the house
I
for a
have done
while.
the Mentos. I have done the Mentos thing. I love it.
Yeah, those for not those that are listening that don't know about it. It's just Coca-Cola and a pack of Mentos and put the top back on real quick and boom.
Yeah, yeah. Very, very cool.
Make sure you do it outside. It's not dangerous, I don't think, but it's not it's
You make a
messy.
little hole in you make a little hole in the lid, and then it really squirts super, super high.
Oh, right.
You can
I
just
don't
go
know. I
Mentos
just
and Coke and look it up on YouTube, and it's
yeah, it's a thing. That's yeah, pretty big thing. Okay, so you did I don't know about these bombs. I'm not sure. So anyway, the next one about marrying your staff.
Well, I have 50 Philippine staff in the Philippines, and so I would go over there continually all the time. And then I met somebody over there, and they were amazing. And when I went over, we'd go on holiday, and we'd go over. And then I just love the culture. The culture is just incredible. They're so family orientated. They're just incredibly family orientated, and they just it's a such a beautiful culture. They're just incredible people to be with. And so obviously I fell in love with one of the staff members, and I married them. And now my favorite dish is adobo, which is like a pork dish, like it's pork and rice. Most of their meals are pork and rice, but it's like a fried pork type dish, So yeah.
Nice. That's romantic. I thought that one would I hope that one's the real one. So alrighty. Now we get to reveal which one's the lie.
The last one.
What? And I'm thinking that's so romantic. Oh, you snowed me over. Oh.
No.
So what's wrong with it? Your favorite dish is something else, or you did not marry a Filipino?
No, I didn't marry a Filipino. No.
Oh.
Yeah. No.
So are you married?
I was married. To a South African, a lady because I'm from South Africa, and I was married to a lady from South Africa. I'm not currently married.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
all the ladies out there now know. I know the first time I ever talked to you, you were in South Africa taking care of your family, which I thought was very nice. Your parents, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
And now you're back in Sydney. So,
absolutely.
well, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I just have enjoyed it so much. And I know people are going to want to know how to get in touch with you. So I'm going to share my screen one more time, and I'm going to show people how they can contact you. So you did give me a really nice quote. I don't know if you want to talk about that at the top of the screen.
So the quote is all about procrastination, and we live in a society now where we literally are almost encouraged to procrastinate. And I have a term for it. I call it productive procrastination. So, you're feeling a little bit tired and you go, I'll just watch some Netflix so I feel better, and then I'll start working later. And then you're watching Netflix, but you're completely procrastinating. But then sometimes you know that you should be doing your accounts, but you go, oh, you know what, I'm going to create a new document on Canva. Or you know that you should be checking your emails, but you look down and you see the floor is a bit dirty, so you think, I'll vacuum the floor. And those things are great. Those things do need to get done, the vacuuming the floor, the documents and everything. But you kind of need to ask yourself, is this the most important thing? Is this the best use of my time that I could be doing now? And I've got a friend, his name is Shane Bird, and he always says, what do I need to do that I don't want to do? What do I need to do that I don't want to do? So, it's a really powerful such a thing if you sit down and think about it, because a lot of us we may be in a relationship. We don't want to be in the relationship, but we're procrastinating to tell the other person. Or we're in a job and, we're thinking, I don't want to be here, but we're procrastinating getting another job. Or in our business, we're procrastinating with getting our book out, or we're procrastinating with all these things. And so procrastination really is stopping you reaching your goals. So work out what the most important thing is. What's the most important thing I should be doing today? And if I don't do anything else, make sure I do that one thing.
Well, I like that whole story and that quote, but you lost me when you said, you might look down and see the floors need mopping or something, and you just have to go do it. No, no, that would not be me. I would look down and see my dogs laying there. It's like, oh, let's go play.
True. And,
Not mopping the floor. One of my things.
True, but even
That's
playing,
not my jam.
but even playing with your dogs is it's something that you do need to do. But if you're playing with your dogs because you don't want to do the accounts, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, that is me.
Yeah. I love it.
Okay, well, they have a bunch of other links here where they can get you, and then you have something and I've seen this site, and I've actually been to one of your classes, and that's so cool. The 6 months of content in 1 hour. You left a link here. Do you have anything you want to talk about there?
Lots of us are struggling to come up with content, and it's understandable because we're busy doing everything else. And then I used to do that. I'd be getting into bed I'd be looking at my phone, maybe setting the alarm, and then going, oh, it's Wednesday today. I was meant to do content. I'm meant to do a post today. And then, do you jump out of bed in your pajamas and do the post, or do you just skip the post for another day, or what do you do? And so it constantly feels like this, like, oh, I've got to catch up. I've got to do this. Or, you constantly feel like you're behind. And so what this program does is I work with you for an hour. One-on-one, and we create 6 months worth of content in that 1 hour. I give you, we work out your ideal avatar, and then we work out, what's the top 10 fears, frustrations, dreams, and desires of your ideal avatar. We work out how do we do hooks, so what's going to stop people scrolling so they'll read your post. I'll also then create 20 stories for you that describe what you do. And I'll give you a quick example, if that's okay. I can say to you, if you're a solopreneur and you're working on your own, you really should get a team, because working on your own, there's a higher chance of failing. Now, you may or may not remember that tomorrow, but I'm going to tell you a story. So there was this old man, and he was dying, and he had 3 sons. And so the 3 sons were always fighting against each other and competing, and the old man wanted them to work together. So he got each of them to go outside and get 2 sticks. And they came back inside with their 2 sticks, and he told the first son, break your stick. And he obviously just broke it. And he told the second son, break your stick, and the third son, break your stick. And then he said, what I want you to do is I want you to take the other 3 sticks, take all of your sticks that are left, and I want you to tie them together. And so they tied them together, and then he gave it to the youngest son, and he said, break it. And the youngest son couldn't, because now it was a big bundle of sticks, And he gave it to the next son, and even the oldest son couldn't break it. And he said, I want you to remember that if you're working on your own, if you're doing things on your own, the world will be able to break you. But if you're doing stuff together as a team, it's very, very hard to break you. Now, tomorrow you might be walking down the road and, walking the dogs, and you see a stick and you'll go, oh, wow, that reminds me of that story that Louis told me, right?
Right.
More so than what I told you before I told you the story. Okay. And so what I do is I help create 20 stories like that for you, for your company, to explain the more difficult concepts. So it makes it easier for people to understand what you do. And then I create 20 Facebook posts. I create a lead magnet. So lead magnet is, you kind of give that away to be able to get people's email addresses, and so they can, engage with you. And then you have a week to digest all of that. And then we catch up again for 20 minutes. And I then actually sit with you and I do a 20-minute podcast. At the end of that podcast, I break it up into shorts, and then I give you back those shorts to put out on your socials. So it is a genuine 6 months worth of content in 1 hour. It's valued at about $2,200, and we do it for $197. I can only do 5 a month because obviously, my time's worth about $500 an hour. And so I'm giving you a full hour and a bit, probably an hour and a half. So it's literally the first come, first serve. So.
Well, very nice. Thank you. And this has been such a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you being here. For those listening, I hope you'll stay tuned to Project Candor and join us at the next episode. And until then, I wish you all smooth sailing.
Thank you.